It's Monday, and you know what that means. Jersey First TV proudly brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And yes, I am certainly New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Top 50 Latino, as voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, because my level of honesty now more than ever is necessary in this era of journalistic deception. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy Monday, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, you know what? Daylight savings time. Hey, you know what? I get we lose an hour of sleep, but isn't it great to be outside after 6 o'clock and still see some daylight? So, hey, I appreciate you tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so this on the 11th of March. Again, whether you're joining us on Facebook Live via StreamYard, also on the Jersey First YouTube page, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, whatever the case may be, folks, we appreciate you tuning in here live on Jersey First TV. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, again, we always appreciate your support on all of our social media platforms. Make sure you like us on Facebook, of course, Jersey First TV, as well as Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And, of course, I know everyone's always watching YouTube for something. Guess what? Click on that subscribe button, and you'll be automatically notified of all the excellent content brought to you every single week by Jersey First TV. And of course, whether you listen to Spotify or SoundCloud, I'm pretty sure you are, download Jersey First and take all of our podcasts with you, whether you're visiting your in-laws, doing some food shopping, maybe going for a run. Again, folks, the days are getting warmer and they're getting a little longer. So you know what? You probably have your smartphone with you. Take Jersey First TV with you anywhere at any time. And I cannot say enough how proud I am to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right, folks. It's Jersey First TV, of course. Brand new episodes of The Nader Narrative, hosted by the amazing Elizabeth Nader, premiere every Thursday, along with brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap, hosted by AJ Malillo and Stephen Rombolo, also premiere every Thursday. And, of course, every Monday night, whether 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., hey, again, check your local listings. Brand new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe. Hey, we're always live every Monday night. Folks, can't say enough, a jam-packed program tonight here. We appreciate you tuning in from wherever and however you might be doing so. I had a great Monday to start off with, ladies and gentlemen. I had the privilege of going to Liberty Science Center today as I was a judge for the annual Hudson County STEM Showcase, their first STEM showcase after the pandemic, and it was great to be there at the Liberty Science Center. I can't say enough. Hey, listen, got to talk to so many talented students. Again, really immersed myself in everything that's going well with STEM, of course, science, technology, engineering, and math, and all of our great high school students here in Hudson County with so many wonderful projects and displays there. I had the privilege to walk around, certainly score all the displays that I was assigned to, learned a lot in the process. And folks, again, listen, you know me, I never pass up the opportunity to go rock a suit, to represent you as your favorite educator and your favorite broadcast journalist, again, representing Real Talk here with Jersey First TV. So I'll talk a little bit more about my experience today at the Liberty Science Center. You also want to stick around for final thoughts, folks, because I will also have a lot to say about Max Pizarro. Yes, folks, the editor-in-chief at, well, it's not really a news site. Some people think it is, but I'll have a lot to say about Max Pizarro and his egregious, editorials at Insider NJ. So you definitely want to stick around for my thoughts on Maxi, because, hey, it's pretty entertaining, as it always is when it comes to dissecting all the nonsense from Insider NJ. So you definitely want to stick around for that, folks. But first, again, it's March, and listen, we're always talking politics on the show, right? But guess what? This week, we're going to talk some academia. We're going to talk some higher education, what's going on our college campuses and the universities, and what better person to talk to this week than the interim president of New Jersey City University. And folks, he's fellow Cubano like myself and with Union City roots. And he's a guy that I am immensely proud of, folks. He is, again, the distinguished interim president, of New Jersey City University. Andrés Acebo joins us here on Real Talk. Andrés, how are you?
Good. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it, man. And again, folks, just to give you a little bit of a background about this extraordinary young man, let me just give you a little bit of a context here. Certainly, Interim President Acebo was elevated to Executive Vice President and University Counsel in the midst of the announcement that was going on with NJCU's current financial emergency on June the 27th of 2022. He's also served as a Secretary of the Board of Trustees and also has guided its government relations initiatives. Obviously, a Brown alumnus for his undergrad and a Rutgers law school graduate as well. So Rutgers Newark is here. So I'm very, very proud of that, Andres. And certainly, folks, since the announcement of the financial emergency, what Andres has done, ladies and gentlemen, he has demonstrated incredible, significant executive leadership. And he walked in the door looking at a $20 million deficit. And what he's done basically is he's been able to collaborate with NJCU's organized labor, stakeholders, and the constituencies to reduce the deficit by more than 50% within 120 days. Folks, there are owners of sports teams, other universities that don't even get to work as quickly as Andres did, but he did that in 120 days. So, Mr. Interim President, tell us about really what that experience was like walking into what a lot of people called a financial mess at NJCU.
Listen, it's to describe it anything other than a privilege would be dishonoring the responsibility. And I think that that's how I embraced it. I'm a proud product of Hudson County, right? My classmates attended NJCU. My wife is an alum of the institution. I knew intimately who this institution serves. That meant also having an intimate and personal tie to recognizing how that community had been let down. And so the work, I think, in higher education fashion, I knew very early on wasn't just going to be about arithmetic. It was going to be about philosophy. And that meant that everything had to be on the table, that I was signing up to make decisions that many would disagree with, and many have. But that I was also engaging in a work with a campus in service of a community that cares about where people's stories begin. And I think the results speak for themselves, right? There's more structural and systemic challenges that remain, right? There are significant ones and they're not to be downplayed. But the work of the last year in particular has been one about doubling down on service to an institution's mission of meeting a population where it is. New Jersey City University serves the most socioeconomically diverse student population in the state.
That's right.
The median household income of our students is $42,000 a year, median, right, in New Jersey. As my mom would say, and we talked offline, they come onto our campus to chase un papelito, right?
Yeah.
To chase that piece of paper that is to anchor themselves generationally, cross-generational, to a mission and a purpose of socioeconomic mobility. And so everything to me had to be filtered through that lens. If it didn't serve our population with a deliberate and specific return on their investment, I would think it would fall nothing short of being sinful to not take on those challenges head on.
I mean, certainly, Andres, I mean, when we're talking about academia, I mean, listen, as someone who's worked in academia and understands higher education, I mean, dealing with academics is difficult, okay? We're talking about a lot of egos. We're talking, in some cases, very bloated egos, right? I mean, I can speak as an academic myself, but the point is that when you have to make hard choices like you did, it's not going to please everybody.
Right.
And, you know, I talk about that, again, from my experience in higher education. I mean, I see that, you know, Rutgers and Montclair State can get away with, I want to be careful. I don't want to use the word wasteful spending, but they can get away with just spending a lot of money when maybe they shouldn't. And, you know, I talk about it all the time. I mean, listen, I get what happens on, you know, on college campuses and universities. Okay. I get that DEI, for example, is very important. And I get it. But at some point, like, you know, Rutgers and Montclair can get away with having 30 deans. Okay. Like, and you don't need 30 deans. Again, you don't need a dean of diversity, a dean of inclusion, a dean of equity. You can sort of consolidate that. Bigger universities can get away with those decisions or other administrative positions that maybe sometimes just bloats the budget of, you know, of the university. That's not the case for, you know, for NJCU, again, living, you know, in such a dense, arguably the most densely populated county in the country, arguably, right? Never mind the state. I mean, we're seeing what an urban university is going to undergo. Case in point, look at Bloomfield College. It's been around for almost 100 years. And it got to a level where the bill comes due. The chickens come home to roost fiscally. And what happened? They ended up being absorbed by Montclair State University. We're seeing William Patterson going through those same fiscal pitfalls that they're also running the risk of maybe also being absorbed by Montclair State. And again, you know, if you're not acting responsibly in a financial manner, sooner or later, Andres, like that catches up to you.
Right.
And again, the bigger universities in New Jersey can get away with that, right? Like, for example, not just public ones, but the private ones that do well, Fairleigh Dickinson, others as well that, again, have that luxury. That's not the case with smaller colleges and universities. I mean, folks, let's remember, it wasn't always NJCU. It was Jersey City State College for decades. And it was primarily the teacher's college. You went there if you wanted to go work in education, get your teaching degree, certificates, whatever, certifications. And it's grown into this vast liberal arts university now where there's a plethora of different disciplines. But again, if you're not, if you're not able to run the ship properly, it starts leaking water. And obviously in NJCU's case, it wasn't just leaking water. It was like, estaba entrando galones, right?
Yeah. I would add this, which is most institutions of higher education are going to have to confront some of the things that NJCU's taken on. I think the approach that we've taken in my administration is to recognize that higher education more generally is headed towards a disruption, right? We're at an inflection point, and we might as well be agents of that disruption, right? Which to me, it's all of higher education regionally and in New Jersey in particular needs to be examined the way we do business, right? There is an argument to be said about more centralized authority, about consolidating resources, right? We don't all need to have competing schools of business, right, within a 15-mile radius.
Correct.
There's somewhat of maybe an occupational delusion that sometimes circumvents even the bureaucracies of public institutions, and higher education is not immune from that. That you plant your flag where someone else has already planted it, right? And you strive to be all things to all people rather than being everything to your people. And presidents often, build reputations and legacies based on what they build. I've strived to make my legacy be one that's etched by who I lifted. At the end of the day, that's the marker of success, that the students that crisscross our campus, they're not, life disproportionately happens to my students, right? And I can appeal to that because it is personal to me. It's a lived experience that I've lived through, right? 60 years this summer, it will mark when my dad came on a raft from Cuba, right? And that in one generation, his son can become a lawyer and the president of a university is a testament to a lot of people pouring into me, right? That there were institutions and organizations that cared about where my story began. And there's humility in that. The vast majority of the students that come to my campus choose us because of the accessibility and the location, right? And the affordability, right? By and large. And when you lose track of that, that's who you serve. You don't serve that population. You can't serve who you don't know you serve. And so the work in earnest has to be about recognizing that we're in a service-oriented profession, that there are finite resources, right? This institution will never have all the money that I think it deserves, the same way that no institution will.
Yeah.
The conversation has to be centered about the outcomes that we seek to move the needle on for the population that we are privileged to serve, and recognizing that we are going to do things differently, that we have to embrace changes. There's an enrollment cliff, a demographic cliff that I think, because we're anchored in Hudson County, is one that this institution weathers more, right? When 40+% of the county's residents are foreign born, right? There's a dynamism that comes with the diversity that's organic in our campus. I think doubling down on a mission of socioeconomic mobility is not just it truly is the end all be all for why we do what we do. And I think Fernando, when you filter all the work through that lens, you achieve the financial stability that we've been able to secure. Again, with a lot of dedicated stakeholders, right, both on and off campus. Your favorite mayor, my favorite mayor, right? Senator Stack has been a champion of this institution. A dear friend, former Assemblywoman Annette Chaparro, was a very vocal champion for this institution. Now we have Senator McCurdy and Senator McKnight, rounding out with new Assemblyman Marenko and Ramirez and Sampson and Rodriguez. I feel like Santa Claus calling out the reindeers. But there's this community of support because we've doubled down on a mission, right? We've actually refined our mission as an organization. We've done some things that we alluded to, right? Unpopular as they might be in academic circles, but necessary nonetheless. We took an academic portfolio that was larger than Rowan universities, right? And we sunsetted about a third of it, and recognizing that that's not without sacrifice and distressing outcomes for people, but recognizing that the future of this institution had to be marked by how we meet our population where it is, and the return on that investment as one that we have to honor.
So listen, it's interesting you bring up the word return on investment, because arguably, we grew up with that premise that, you graduate high school, go to college, and, I get in trouble all the time with my peers in academia when I talk about the social sciences and, what degrees matter more and what means more. And listen, I say this often. I say this to my students, again, working in higher ed, I say it all the time, like, make sure you're pursuing a major and or degree that is going to get you ready for the job market that has evolved enormously pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID.
That's right.
Okay. And I say this all the time. I get, again, a lot of, my feminist watchers on the program and colleagues will be like, I always go after women's studies, and I get it. It's not something for me. And, it's something that, well, okay, you can go to Barnes and Nobles and spend a weekend there and learn about women's studies. Again, I'm not being blasphemous. I'm just being realistic. Like, to invest $50,000, $60,000 in a women's studies degree, unless you're going into education, is going to become a teacher, unless you're going to go into social work, into nonprofit work, maybe some element of government work. Yeah, that degree is great. It's that foot in the door. The expectation that, again, we grew up, for a lot of us, right, being the children of immigrants, you and I, the idea that, go to college, get a papelito, because guess what? When you graduate, there's a job waiting for you. That's not the case anymore. And that has changed dramatically, to where I tell people, hey, women's studies is cute, and Hispanic Caribbean studies is great, and poetry, that's wonderful. That's adorable. But will it help you get a job? Will it help you pay rent in a state that is becoming increasingly unaffordable? Will it help you maybe get a career where you could buy a house, which again is very, very steep for a lot of working class Hispanics, which is pretty much the majority of what our population is in Hudson County and in New Jersey in general. So I always tell my students, pick a major that's going to help you get a career. And then once that foot's in the door, great. But also refine other skills. Don't just think that 8x10 piece of paper is sufficient. You have to, again, get fine-tuned in a lot of other skill sets. And I think sometimes, my students do listen to me, and, years later when they're asking for a letter of recommendation, like, hey, Professor Dr. Uribe, listen, your words really resonate with me, and I love you for that, and thank you. Instead of pursuing this, I'm doing this, and now I'm the happiest I've ever been. Because again, I look at my kids and I'm like, I'm there to help you. I'm not there to, I'm not there to sort of coddle you per se, though, Andres. I'm there to tell you the truth, as uncomfortable as it may be. And especially in higher ed has become a business. Right. You know that, I think, better than anybody. And I think that's not what we grew up knowing about higher ed. Is that fair to say? I
think that's true. I'd be remiss, though, Fernando, in defense of my women's gender studies.
Sure, I get it.
that there is a value proposition.
Sure.
To those disciplines, right? Sure. And I think in the more nuanced view of higher education, right, it's that I really do believe that higher education helps lead the fight to preserve democratic ideals. I really do, as imperfectly as it's done, right? That higher education, when it's at its truest form, right? When it's not fixated on censoring speech on college campuses, right? When it invites actual dissent and debate, right? When it's a laboratory for ideas, that is when higher education is at its best. And I think what you cultivate on a college campus, if you're earnest in that commitment and you're honest about that commitment of inviting intellectual debate, of diverging perspectives, is that you forge a conscious citizen, right? Someone who is introspective, that questions their own ideas before they question someone else's, right? And that in earnest does happen in those classes, and those are transferable skills. But to your point, right, is that we need to be able to do that and also ensure that our students have gainful employment when they hire, right? That the only debt, if we do our job right, that a student graduates with is the one that they owe their society and their country because of the opportunities that they've been afforded, right? That they get to pay that debt forward. That I think has to be the hallmark of a nuanced 21st century institution of higher education, and especially a public one.
Sure. No, absolutely on this. And folks, again, if you're just joining us right now, it's 7:19 here on the East Coast. My guest tonight is the distinguished interim president of New Jersey City University, Andrés Acebo. Join us here on Real Talk. Andrés, let me ask you this because it's a question that, you brought up free speech, and I really want to pick your brain again as a college president, university president. I think we've seen it in the headlines 4 months now. I know that there was a lot of disruptive behavior at my alma mater, Rutgers University, New Brunswick, as well as other college campuses across New Jersey, across New York, even across the country. It's in regards to obviously what's going on in the Middle East. We've seen students, obviously not only Jewish students, but students that are Islamic and certainly identify with Palestine and what's going on there. I've been one of those guys, Andres, that I find these disruptions on college campuses, universities, toxic. I think we've seen that level of toxicity. We see it across the river at NYU. We've seen it at obviously, really, puny schools in both New York State and New York City. We've seen it here in New Jersey, as far south as Rowan, as well as also the Rutgers campuses, as well as Montclair. What can you share with us again as the college president? I'm sure you've been confronted on campus, or your inbox is flooded, or you've been approached on campus about what's allowable and what isn't. Right? We saw 3 Ivy League presidents go before Congress struggling with defining genocide, and I think, Andres, for me again, and I think full disclosure, people know that I'm really one of the few conservative journalists in New Jersey media. I looked at that theatrical show, and I get it. Again, nothing against attorneys. You're an attorney. I understand that the college councils probably were very careful in what they told these presidents to say. Again, you don't want to implicate the university liable for something, but in your capacity, again, as an attorney and also a university president, what's been your experience in recent months with, let's be honest, free speech on college campuses? One group maybe getting marginalized and maybe even getting harassed, to one that maybe is doing the harassing. Those optics are there. How have you handled it, and what has that sort of infiltrated NJCU?
It really hasn't, actually, and I think it's because of the microcosm of who we serve, right? We have a significant Muslim population on our campus, right? There's a large Palestinian community in Jersey City and in Hudson County, and beautifully frame the mosaic of our campus. We also have Jewish faculty and students. I took the approach, Fernando, very perhaps to some naively, of you can condemn an act of terror and genocide and say that has no safe harbor on a college campus. Correct. And recognizing that you can also simultaneously call for the end of senseless loss of innocent lives, civilian lives, right? And then on a college campus in particular, those are things and debates that should happen, that are respectful. But there was never going to be a situation where a lawyer tells me that I can't call out genocide and anti-Semitism or Islamophobia, right? Like, because my charge is not to solve the world's ills or problems. It is to ensure the social and emotional well-being of the students and families who pay to attend my institution, so that but in doing so, you have to, and I've always candidly recognized that trauma, that is the tropes of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, are things that traffic within our communities, and that our students and faculty and staff bring that onto our campus with them, right? So this isn't about creating safe spaces. This is about having zero tolerance for anything that demeans human worth, right, and human existence. And it's quite puzzling, and perhaps maybe it's because I haven't been in this role long enough to succumb, I guess, to the bureaucratic thinking of that. But to me, it's just it's inexcusable to look at your community, who you're entrusted to serve, right, immediately, and not be able to say, I condemn an act of terror, right? That we stand by communities that are afflicted disproportionately by it, and recognizing that there are heated and storied experiences and pain that is cross-generational, right? That there are people on my campus who have family members who have numbers tattooed on their wrist, right? And there are also students who check, and getting play-by-plays of what's happening in Gaza and
Sure.
watching loved ones be blown up, right? Like that's a reality that happens in the lives of our students, and they bring those experiences onto our campuses. I think being culturally responsive is not about appeasing, a particular political agenda, right?
Sure.
It's about being culturally responsive. It means you see someone and you see their lived experiences, and you can disagree, right, with the outcomes and the statements that some might want me to make, maybe more arduous than others. But my job is to make sure that the Muslim student and the Jewish student and the Christian student and the non-believer that crosses my campus sees themselves reflected and valued on a campus. And that means that you decry any sentiment that says and questions their worth.
Very well said. Very well said on this. Folks, again, if you're just joining us right now, it's 7:24 here on the East Coast. Our guest this evening live is the interim president of New Jersey City University, Andrés Acebo, here joining us on Real Talk. Now, Andrés, for our audience at home, maybe that isn't familiar with the process, it's a 2-year appointment.
Right.
Arguably, I think, listen, even Stevie Wonder can see the wonderful job you've been doing, okay? Let's be honest about it. But what's the process going to entail as the 2-year appointment nears its end? I mean, what's going to be the process about taking that interim title off, and rightfully so, making you the full-time president? Because I think, listen, what you walked into, and again, you mentioned former Assemblywoman Annette Shapiro. I mean, what her votes in Trenton, what she advocated for in terms of funding for NJCU, I think is so admirable. I'm a huge fan of Annette. Obviously, the way she was removed from the assembly, or at least her seat, I think was wrong, and I've defended her to death. But, obviously seeing legislators like her fight for NJCU has been amazing. To your point, again, Mayor and State Senator Brian Stack has also been a big champion for NJCU. He understands the importance of having a large-scale university within Hudson County borders. And I think you see that. Obviously, Hudson County Community College with Dr. Reber has been doing an amazing job. He'll be on this summer, so I'm looking forward to talking to him again. Certainly the president of St. Peter's University has done a wonderful job as well. Three thriving colleges and universities in Hudson County is a good thing.
Yes.
But again, as you approach that 2-year mark, what's the process? I mean, again, if you're at liberty to talk about it, but what's the process going to entail? Where is it a committee? Is it a committee full of faculty members with deans, administrators, the provost? What's the process going to be? Because I think if anyone's rightfully deserving to continue as president of NJCU, I would say it's you, Andrés. But what's the process entail?
I think it ultimately come down to the board. Fortunately, the board and I have been pretty lockstep with respect to the vision for this institution. I will say this, Fernando. I'm deeply committed to seeing this institution thrive, not just survive a crisis, but to thrive. I maybe naively have taken the approach that if you do the job, you don't have to worry about keeping the job.
Yes, right.
And so that's been my focus. I will say how we began our conversation. It is forever will be the greatest professional honor that I've ever been bestowed, has been to lead and to be entrusted to lead this institution, especially at this particular moment in its history. I have not for a second taken for granted the responsibility that I've been entrusted with. But that responsibility has come with honoring experience and story, right? A lot's been said about that I'm the only Latino leading any institution of higher education in New Jersey. Equally surprisingly, in New Jersey, a lot also said about my age, right? That I'm the youngest to do it.
Sure.
I pride myself. Those are things that I can't control, right? I couldn't dictate what family I was born into or when I was born. I can tell you though, the things that I'm particularly proud of is that I'm Hudson County through and through.
Yeah.
I grew up breathing the same air and walking the same streets as the students that I'm privileged to serve today. that every single day I come onto a campus where my story is reflected back at me from students who in many instances sometimes emulate not so much my story, but my family story.
Absolutely.
Right. And my parents, right. To make something out of nothing.
Yep.
And to me, my commitment for as long as I'm privileged to hold this office, however long that proves to be, is that I honor that every single day that I walk into this office, that I step onto this campus, because someone at some point in my life, a faceless person, right, a nameless person, cared about where my story began, cared about what came of my life. And every single day, I get to be that faceless, nameless person in a room, championing our community. And if I'm given the privilege to continue serving, it's one that I will honor with my deeds and my actions, but with fidelity first and foremost to who I'm privileged to serve.
Andres, let me ask you this again, and again, I'm biased here. I think you should continue serving. Obviously, hopefully the board itself will, in my opinion, hopefully make the right decision. When's the end of the 2-year? Is it 2000?
Next January.
Next January. Okay. Again, executive board. You don't have to listen to me, but I hope you do. I think Andres certainly is most deserving. Let's sort of go down again. I hate to use ifs and buts, we're candy and nuts, as they say. But let's say, again, within the next 2 years, you continue on, Andres, and NJCU really gets out of, again, the financial hole that it's been and starts to sort of thrive financially, whatever that means. I can't quantify what that means, but let's sort of just, hypothesize for a moment. What would you like to see the direction of NJCU continuing? Because I know that in previous years, for example, we saw a lot of like campus housing popping up right along West Side Avenue, certain departments growing in budgets. But ideally, I think maybe, obviously that had to be scaled back. Obviously, maybe parking's still a problem. Maybe we need more parking decks because we've always known NJCU to be very much a commuter school. Again, very much a commuter school. Again, that's not a negative label. That's just the truth, right? I mean, for a lot of working adults of all age ranges, it's been convenient to go there. Having said that, in the next 2-3 years, what would you like to see NJCU take on and tackle? Again, should everything, should all the I's be dotted, T's be crossed financially? Where would you like to see NJCU go in what path?
I think it's been the hallmark of student success, right? And driving socioeconomic mobility for our students. We already made strides in just our reforms. Just this year, CollegeNet ranked us #1 in New Jersey for socioeconomic mobility, #10 in the nation, right? I think that should be a brag point for the state of New Jersey, right? That I have my own quarrels with the way U.S. World News Report does their rankings, right? So needless to say, I put a little bit more stock into some of the more independent reviews that look at the socioeconomic profile of your student population and where they are 10 years out. And NJCU historically has done a phenomenal job. And I think the reforms that we have adopted, curricular, there's been a lot of talk about the financial, but we chew gum and walk at the same time at NJCU, and my administration has been adamant about that. We've overhauled our general education curriculum to become the most transfer-friendly public brick and mortar institution in the state, taking away some of the business that's broken in higher education that just promotes excess credit accumulation, right? That keeps students incurring more debt and keeping them longer towards degree completion, of diving into career transfer pathways, right? That recognizes, again, that academic success in our community isn't a linear trajectory, right? That people's lives change, that there are folks that by choice and sometimes not find disruptions in their academic careers, right? That they have to take time off to work and provide for their families and for themselves, right? That we are an institution that's malleable to meeting our students where they are, right? There's been a lot about, and kudos to them. There are institutions in this state that do this brilliantly, that are ready to receive college-ready students. I want to be a student-ready college, right? That meets our population where it is, that recognizes that one size does not fit all, right? That the traditional markers of success of 4-year graduation rates, that there's a lot that NJCU needs to do to improve those numbers, but recognizing that, there are different benchmarks for success, that in our community, is a real indicator of success, right? The student that can hold down 2 full-time jobs, right, to help mom and dad pay the bills and graduate in 6 years is no less of a success than the student that graduates magna cum laude from Princeton, right? And in fact, I would actually take that student over the Princeton magna cum laude grad any day, because if there's an employer out there looking and you want to know whether the investment that you're going to make on a prospective employee is worth it, look at what they've persisted and persevered through in their personal life. That piece of paper, ese papelito, right, at NJCU signifies not just that you were able to, meet minimum academic standards, that you were able to turn in a paper in on time.
Sure.
When you achieve that at NJCU, it means that you've survived life.
That's right.
That you are from a community and that you were forged in the hotbed, right? The strongest steel is forged in the hottest of fires, right? That our community is disproportionately, sometimes systemically plagued upon, that a community that has to reinvent itself, right? Where there's a dearth of resources often, and that we stand for something incredibly noble, Fernando, which is you don't have to change your zip code to find your promise, right? That there's humility in being a commuter institution, of being incredibly accessible and open access if we must, but that we are oriented exclusively about the socioeconomic outcomes of our students, because it is cross-generational, the work that we're doing. You change one life, you change a family, you change a block, right? You change a city, and you change a state, and you change a country, right? And I think what my hope would be in 3 years' time is that NJCU will inevitably look very different than it even does today.
Sure.
But that policymakers and campus leaders and community members and students are at the forefront of any debate or deliberation, and that we pour every ounce of ourselves, every resource available to strengthening an institutional mission, right? That when we talk about how to move this institution forward, we recognize that we have to, first and foremost, recognize that we're not just talking about an organization, we're talking about people.
Well said. Well said. Before I let you go, though, Andres, a couple of things. What big events coming up on campus? I know, obviously, the spring semester is rolling along. Spring break is right around the corner, if not already. But the point is that obviously the school year will be, ending roughly early to mid-May. Graduation, commencement ceremonies. It's great to be back doing them in person, obviously, after what's happened in the last 4 years, for sure. But what big events can we look forward to on the campus of NJCU in the coming months?
Yeah, so we're going to be announcing some significant partnerships when it comes to nursing education with some healthcare providers in the state. Just today, we hosted a roundtable on the teacher shortage, where I announced, and this will be more public in the coming weeks, but I'll break the news here with you tonight, Fernando, of a graduate discount of 15% for anyone pursuing a graduate degree in education at NJCU. Those things might look like tricks of the trade, right? But to me, it's about being responsive to the community and being a constructive partner in elevating that. We have our commencement exercises on May 15th at the Red Bull Arena, where we'll be graduating over 1,000 students, by and large, overwhelmingly the first in their families to pursue a college degree. And the work continues, Fernando, day in and day out, right? There's no summer recess for the work. I will say that something that I hope that I'm particularly proud of, that I hope gets enshrined here, and that is spoken of and emulated long after my time comes to an end at NJCU, whenever that proves to be, that we act with urgency in meeting our population where it is. That doing anything short of that is distasteful and disdainful, and unbecoming of leadership.
Well said there. Before I let you go, though, man, I mean, we've talked about Andrés Acebo, the attorney, the college president, interim president, hopefully soon to be full-time college president. But let's sort of learn about Andrés, the guy, right? So, what's your favorite Cuban dish?
Oh, I love ropa vieja.
Really? I'm a picadillo con.
Picadillo, that's good, but the ropa vieja, like abuela.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I'm a picadillo con arroz y frijoles negro.
Y maduros.
Oh, I'm more tostones. I can't more tostones. Yankees or Mets?
Yankees, man.
Big Yankee fan as well. Yeah. Giants, Jets, or Eagles? Again,
I'm going to really disappoint here, and this is where I'm going to reveal my real Cuban American roots. Miami Dolphins.
Okay, well, I'm a Cowboy fan, so man, again, we get hate locally for different reasons, right? You go to Jet Dolphin games, man, and it's amazing. No, it's interesting because there's so many Dolphin fans within this area. Like
There is actually, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how often you go to the Jets Dolphin game at MetLife.
I have, yeah, but but you see more teal and orange than you do green.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's interesting. We'll have to get you back after that loss last year at Hard Rock Stadium. We'll get you next time, but sure. Rangers, Devils, or Islanders?
I'm a Devils fan.
Same here, Devils. Knicks, Nets, or Sixers?
Knicks, man.
Okay, I'm a Laker guy, so I mean, I gotta, go there. Here's an interesting one because I know that obviously NJCU has had great success, right? But you're a Rutgers alum through law school, but Rutgers are seen hall when they play in basketball, man. Who are you rooting for when they're on TV?
Rutgers, man. I got that law degree, helped pay off some of my student loans.
Absolutely, yeah. Listen, I'm a Rutgers guy in my undergrad, my graduate degrees as well. There. Here's a good one. Maybe I'll get you thinking here. Marvel or DC?
I'm a DC fan.
Really? Why? Educate me, Mr. President. Educate me.
I think what it's like to me. It's growing up. I was a big Superman, Christopher Reeve.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
I just think the DC fan base and the comics I think have a darker undertone that is more grounded in realism.
Yeah.
Right. But I will say that like I do like Marvel too. Like I think if I had a favorite Marvel character, it's probably Spider-Man.
I'll say this on this. I'm a Marvel guy, but my favorite comic book character is Batman because he's a human being.
Yeah.
He's the smartest, probably human being. Bruce Wayne is probably the smartest in maybe, him and Tony Stark maybe are kind of like, neck and neck. But the point is that Batman's a human being. There's no special powers. His special powers are his brain, his training. And, he's a detective. And again, there's an element about Batman that we can all relate to. There's a dark element to Bruce Wayne, but there's also a very humanistic side to Bruce Wayne as well, in the sense that, Batman never kills, right? Like, that's the point. Batman never kills. Batman's a glorious character. One last one here, and I think it's one that's working in academia. I'm a little bit of an Apple snob, but MacBook or a PC?
Oh, MacBooks.
Okay. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Right? Like, yeah. People say I'm an Apple snob.
Stay away from me with your green bubble text.
I'm gonna tell you something. I have talked to people, and when I see a green text, I'm like, no, Yamame.
It makes you question their judgment.
I got no desire to talk to you if I see a green text. Okay, I want to see a blue text. I want to see iMessage. I want to see an iPhone. But folks, that's Andrés Acebo, the guy, obviously, but he also coincidentally is the distinguished interim president of NJCU right now. Andrés, I just want to, first of all, I want to say thank you for coming on this program. I think we've had a wonderful conversation. I want to make this a regular thing with you. I'm sure listen, spoiler alert, you're going to get some grief from some of the liberal faculty members on campus, I'm sure, once this airs out on a mass email list. Like, you went on your Uribe show? ¿Qué le pasa, Andrés? But you know what? The important thing is to have dialogue. And I think that's what we do well here on this program. Again, I want to thank you for your time, being a fan of the show. Give my best to your family. Obviously, we have some roots and connections for some years. Yes. And keep up the great work, man. And I have no doubt that you should continue being the president of NJCU because, listen, you walked into a very tough situation. As you mentioned, you made tough choices. And sometimes, to quote Thanos, right, the hardest choices require the strongest wills. Yeah. And you certainly didn't snap a finger and no gauntlet on, no infinity gauntlet on your hand, but you've done miraculous work at NJCU, and I think that deserves to be rewarded and applauded and commended. And you've done a great job, man. So best of luck to you. We'll talk to you later this year here on Jersey First TV.
Thank you, Fernando.
Take care. Have a great night, and give my best to the family.
Thank you. Likewise.
Take care. Folks, great stuff here with Andrés Acebo, the interim president at NJCU. And folks, listen, higher ed's a tough business. No question. As he mentioned before, we look at certainly the costs of higher education that continue to increase, fees and everything else. But what he's done at NJCU has been nothing short of remarkable. And I think it's a testament to his work ethic. Listen, let's be honest. He's Cuban. So, of course, he has a work ethic. I'm Cuban too. And that's what we know we do. We get to work. Trabajamos. Somos puntual. We get to work. We do the work. And that's what it is. But again, folks, all kidding around aside, I mean, you look at a guy like him and you just have to just admire someone like Andres for his dedication, for his commitment, and really to sort of navigate the shark-infested waters, which sometimes I think circle within higher education, whether it's a small college or a mid-size, above-size type of urban university, which is what NJCU has become. Again, folks, as I mentioned during the broadcast earlier, I mean, for many decades, we looked at it as Jersey City State College, right? It was a commuter college. It was a college where a lot of, Hudson County, nearby Bergen County residents, if you want to pursue teaching, you want to pursue something within the liberal arts, you went to Jersey City State College for your degrees, right? And certainly with time and obviously expansion, it grew into NJCU. And certainly it is still, as Andres pointed out very, very decisively, it has become a gem here in northern New Jersey for its programs, for its contributions to student success. So again, I just tip my hat off to Andrés Acebo, the interim president at NJCU, which I hope, again, folks, we get to see that interim title being removed and he becomes the permanent president of NJCU. Because listen, I'm into giving grades out. You want to talk about giving grades? This guy has scored an A+, in my opinion, when it comes to, let's be honest, getting NJCU out of the financial hole that it had been in for so many years. And again, to his credit, obviously, you have to, also give a lot of, applause and admiration to our local legislators here in northern Hudson County. Obviously, Mayor and State Senator Stack out of the 33rd Legislative District. Obviously, Jersey City no longer is in that district, but he doesn't stop serving Hudson County. And obviously, looking at the other legislators, both in the state Senate, obviously for many, many years, State Senator Cunningham, and certainly her successor now, State Senator Angela McKnight, obviously very committed to NJCU, as well as all the assemblymen, both in the 31st, 32nd, and 33rd legislative districts. So I'll be keeping an eye on NJCU, folks, and I'll certainly look forward to talking to Andres later on this summer, maybe into the fall as we approach the next academic year, and see how NJCU is doing. So you definitely want to stick around for that here as the program rolls on in 2024. Folks, you don't want to go anywhere because you know what time it is. It's time for final thoughts. And ladies and gentlemen, over the weekend, obviously, and we'll talk a little bit more about my experience earlier today at Liberty Science Center. Great experience. But, over the weekend, obviously I get, emails and texts or DMs from people hearing, or seeing things like, hey, did you see what this journalist said, or this irresponsible column, or this irresponsible reporting? And, listen, folks, there's no, I talk about all the time on this program, there's no shortage of irresponsible journalism here in New Jersey, right? I mean, the Star Ledger with Tom Moran, right? Looking at Terrence McDonald with the New Jersey Monitor, right? Charles Stile with NorthJersey.com via the Bergen Record, David Cruz with NJ Spotlight News, right? Obviously, Matt Friedman and that nonsense propaganda that he espouses more on his social media than the reporting. But we get, I think you get the point that we're political NJ. But folks, when I think about egregious journalism, when I think about irresponsible journalism, folks, what comes to mind consistently, and I don't read it anymore because I have better things to do with my time. But when someone says to me, hey, did you check out that really stupid column at Insider NJ? And my immediate response is like, well, when? Because that's like what they do hourly. So you're gonna have to be a little more specific, right? And this weekend, somebody brought to my attention Max Pizarro, the editor-in-chief at Insider NJ. And again, shout out to Max. I mean, he he'll publish a column, once every 2 or 3 months. Maybe he leaves the house every 2 or 3 months, and, leave it up to Max Pizarro. I mean, listen, there are other clowns at Insider NJ, which I go after regularly. But folks, it starts at the top that somehow the Graham family feels that compensating this clown is a worthwhile venture. And you have to look at the latest column there. who's up and who's down the week of March 4th. And again, shout out to Max Pizarro doing some actual work, I mean, which I thought was amazing because he doesn't really do a lot of work to begin with. But you have to look at it. You have to look at, folks, how ridiculous this who's up and who's down chart is here. Okay, so the first person he mentioned about who's up is Joe Biden. And folks, if you had a chance to watch last week's, I mean, just disaster of a State of the Union. I mean, what we saw was pathological lying by an 87-year-old man, the president of the United States, right? So this is what Maxie decides to write in his column. I don't care what anyone says. Great speech last night by the president of the United States. I mean, really, Max? I mean, it was pretty much the most dishonest, inflammatory, pandering, really embarrassing State of the Union I can remember in quite some time. Okay. He wrote Upper Deck, right? I mean, that's the level of delusion and disconnect that Maxie has. Republicans, with some significant and instructive exceptions, apparently don't have a problem submitting to a pygmy who might have been great as one of the villains in the old Batman TV series. What a skin-crawling shame to see grown men ubiquitously attending to a whiny, crying child. Hold on one second here. Yeah, okay. Many purposeful, good-humored, and vigorously rooted. In our American faith, Biden showed, I can't even say this with a straight face, like this is how delusional Max Pizarro is. Biden showed leadership at that podium in the United States Capitol, the same one Donald Trump urged a mob to overrun because his own vice president sought to justly ratify the 2020 election in Biden's favor. No, Max, again. And this is the problem that you and the rest of the Trump delusion syndrome club at Insider NJ subscribe to. You know, Alan Steinberg, who again, it's 7:52. It's way past his bedtime, right? Jay Lasseter, another useless human at Insider NJ. Bob Henley. I mean, you talk about useless humans. It starts with, the general manager, Peter Nalia, right? But Max, what happened on January 6, 2021? And I get that the 45th president lives rent-free in your head. I get it. Okay? A grown man like you that has this level of derangement syndrome. One thing is Tom Moran and Charles Stile and David Cruz and Matt Friedman. I get all that. I mean, they're clowns in their own way. But the level of Trump delusion, like Trump derangement syndrome, folks, that Max Pizarro practices is really alarming, because here's the editor-in-chief of what used to be a pretty credible news site that's long gone with Insider NJ, let's be honest, right? Because, folks, what we all know, and again, what we saw with footage is, and you saw the transcript, right? The 45th president didn't urge any mob or anything to do anything. Okay, it was a guided tour. Was anyone killed did anyone bring weapons to the Capitol building? No, right? But Max Pizarro is the same clown. Remember, Max Pizarro is the same clown that during the summer of 2020, when people were rioting and looting and burning down police stations, burning down public and private buildings, okay, looting, vandalizing businesses on the name of a career criminal. We all know what we're talking about, right? The fentanyl ingesting George Floyd, right? Okay. During the summer of 2020, you didn't hear Maxi Pizarro not once criticize the social unrest or the peaceful protests, right? I mean, that would require Max to leave his house, right? Not a peep out of Max Pizarro and the rest of the clowns at Insider NJ during the summer and fall of 2020, right? When BLM and Antifa, anarchists basically and radicals were destroying cities all across the country. But Max Pizarro is going to have a party in his pants about January 6th, when, let's be honest, we saw the footage. We saw Capitol Police literally escorting people throughout the Capitol building. Okay? But more on that later. Okay? Maybe we'll get down on Biden. Of course, Max, because gas is still over $3. Interest rates are still high. Crime is running rampant all across the country because the Justice Department doesn't go after these irresponsible blue prosecutors. And again, Max, I get it. When you don't leave your house and you live a sheltered life like you do, it's hard for you to see what's going on in blue cities and in urban areas. I get all that, Max. Okay? But again, funneling money into corrupt regimes like Ukraine, right? Terrified about Putin. Folks, Putin isn't going to do anything. Okay? Russia and Ukraine have been at it for 2 years. No one's any closer to ending that war than anything else. But let's keep pumping billions of dollars to Ukraine and that corrupt regime led by President Zelensky. But Max won't tell you about that because Max would rather virtue signal. That's what he's good at. Okay? So he goes, but he's one of the, hopefully not last, real guys in politics. Yes, we saw that when, thankfully, U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene brought it to the president's attention that because of his disastrous border policies, nursing student Laken Riley, not Lincoln Riley, not the coach at USC, Laken Riley was murdered by an illegal. So I'm glad that the president actually took the bait and talked transparently because it wasn't illegal that killed Laken Riley. Just like illegals are committing crimes all over this country. But again, Max doesn't care about that. Because again, Max is nice and sheltered in his home. Again, and when he does work, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, maybe he sees that, but he doesn't. Right? A precious compliment to the tough ideals of our country, born out of the Enlightenment. He fundamentally understands the vitality of America. Check out the rest of this garbage. The delicate and painstaking work of diplomacy, amid screams of ceasefire without secured hostages on one side, and unleashing hell upon innocents on the other. And the stakes for the world if America lacks all evidence of moral fiber. Okay? Giggling spectators prepared for a corpse to show up, which, well, okay, I get it. Listen, we can inject an 88-year-old man with drugs too, Max. But as you saw that at some point the Adderall wears off, right? Only to see the President of the United States radiating power complete with Thomas Jefferson line twists. This is a volatile election cycle, right? I'm not going to, give you the rest of it here. But a leader spoke last night to the better angels of our nature, beloved by Lincoln. His name is Biden. Again, folks, the level of delusion by Max Pizarro is pretty extraordinary, right? Obviously, also Tammy Murphy. I mean, check out, folks, as a Dallas Cowboy fan, as someone who loves the state of Texas and respects Cowboys, I mean, this is a disservice to Cowboys everywhere. Check out this. Look at this clown, folks. Look at this clown. Okay. I don't know if he likes riding horses, if horses like riding him. I don't know. That's something for Max in his personal time. But more on that later. But the rest of this list was just nonsense. Only, and then one bright spot I would say, obviously, is, and I was surprised that he gave Alex Zidane the love that he did. Again, fellow journalist, and who I think should be the Republican frontrunner for the Republican nomination to run in the U.S. Senate for this year. Right? It's interesting. He had the nerve to write, speaking of ink-stained wretches, one of them wants something for a change. In this case, the backing of the Passaic County Regular Republican Organization. Under the leadership of Chairman Peter Murphy and Vice Chairwoman Joni Walsh, the PCRO last night unveiled its Republican candidates for the 2024 elections. Obviously, Alex Zidane winning that backing was great. I was very surprised because, does Max ever, give any kudos to any conservatives or Republicans? Very, very rarely. All right. Who else was up here? Oh, this is what's really egregious about Max, right? Now, who's down in New Jersey politics, for example? He mentioned Katie Britt, the distinguished U.S. Senator from the great state of Alabama. So he writes, look, I'm not anti-hokey and folksy. No, yeah, you are, Max. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, look at you. I mean, God forbid you got a haircut anytime soon, but that's another thing. Trying to be nice here, but I saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind back in the 1970s and enjoyed it. I never thought it would beam down again in quite this way. Apparently, the GOP thought that by putting the senator from Alabama in the kitchen, they'd escape the fate of Bobby, let me tell you a story, Jindal. All it did was make that kitchen look like the staging area for the next Stanley Kubrick, Steven Spielberg collaboration. Folks, again, that's such a blatant, and for someone like Max Pizarro, who hasn't had a good-looking woman in his kitchen since his wife left him, right, many years ago, and rightfully so, like, who wants to come home to this insufferable prick, right? Like, who would want to, right? But Katie Britt delivered a very on-point response to the State of the Union. Again, Max, newsflash, and maybe that hat's too tight on that enormous melon head of yours, okay? But the border's wide open, okay? More than 7 million illegals continue to flood the country, use up our social services, overcrowd our schools, bring anchor babies over, all right? Destroy the quality of life in our cities. You want me to keep going? Right? Where inflation is still a problem, okay? Where it's hard for working class people with interest rates, okay, to maybe buy a home, buy property of any kind, even as an investment property, because again, interest rates are high. Gas is still over $3. But Max Pizarro is the same imbecile that will tell you that, what everyone's doing in Trenton is great as the gas tax continues to skyrocket, as we continue to have the highest property taxes in the country, They just went up again. Do you think Max Pizarro wants to talk about it? Of course not. He's in his little shack of a home down in central Jersey. Again, Max, when you only work 2 or 3 times a year, it's easy for you to be disconnected from everyday New Jerseyans, everyday working, working people, not that you know anything about working, right? Okay. But what Senator Britt brought to our attention was the disastrous job that Sleepy Joe has been doing. Okay. So what he's been doing merits, again, that shirt right behind me, because Joe Biden does suck. He's been neglectful on the border. He's been neglectful instead of drilling domestically, making sure that we're not dependent on foreign oil, that we're drilling domestically to make sure that we can live on our oil reserves. Okay. Food prices, supply side prices, everything that affects regular, everyday working people. Again, there's that level of disconnect. See, the cowboy behind me doesn't understand that. Again, he's too busy riding horses, or maybe horses riding him. We don't know that. Okay. But what Katie Britt did last week, again, was illustrate that regular, everyday Americans are sitting around the kitchen table talking about, well, can we afford rent? Can we afford our property taxes? Can we afford to go on vacation? And I get it. See, these are issues that don't matter to Max because the Graham family is paying Max 6 figures to sit in his ass at home. So I get it. Max, you have this level of disconnect that, let's be honest, other New Jerseyans can't empathize with. Okay. But for regular, working people, working, something you know nothing about, let's be honest. Okay. They feel that strain. They feel their pocket being tighter. So when Katie Britt is sitting at a kitchen table, guess what? What she's doing is representing every working mom, working dad, working family that has to sit around the table and think about the disaster that is Joe Biden. And this clown behind me has the nerve to talk about who's up in politics and it's Joe Biden. Folks, you cannot get more delusional than Max Pizarro. And that's saying something because there's a lot of delusional people in New Jersey media. Uncle Dave with NJ Spotlight News, Tommy Boy with Tom Moran with the Star Ledger, Little Terry, Terrence McDonald with the New Jersey Monitor, Maddie, little Maddie Friedman, who's just home in his cabin all day smoking weed. And let's be honest, folks. All right. Pretty much being affectionate with the only pussy in the house that can stand to be near him. And those are his cats. Right. Or Charles Style, Chucky with his usual Trump derangement syndrome, or Sleepy Allen with his Trump derangement syndrome. Right. But now what Max is doing is just contributing to that by being this out of touch with what's going on in New Jersey politics, and not just the state, but American politics. To go after, it's funny about, he wants to have this, he wants to have this level of delusion about when Donald Trump goes after women. How about Max Pizarro going after Katie Britt, a distinguished United States senator who gave a brilliant and rightfully so an emotional response to that disaster called the State of the Union. The State of the Union isn't strong, folks. He also goes on by going after who's down? Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House. Republicans, okay, everyone else too, thought Biden would fall over at the podium when he gave his State of the Union speech. Well, at some point you saw the drugs were wearing off, right, Max? But again, that level of disconnect is the norm for Max Pizarro. Right? Speaker Johnson no doubt had intrepid lines prepared for an evening-saving stab at the microphone, but as Biden delivered one of the best speeches of his career, I mean, folks, the level of delusion by Max Pizarro never ceases to amaze me. Indeed, a great American speech. The precocious-looking lad from Louisiana smoldered in the background like withering wallpaper at a good old-fashioned grandpa stamping hootenanny or ass whooping. Folks, the facial expressions that Speaker Mike Johnson last Thursday saying, this old fool is trying to get us to believe that the State of the Union is strong. Again, wide open border, an incompetent vice president who's just nya. Like that's Kamala Harris. That's Kamala Harris. But you'll never once hear Max Pizarro talk about the vice president and her ineptitude, right? Okay. Again, inflation, crime running rampant in our cities because of egregious cash bail and bail reform policies, right? He's more than willing to have clowns like Corin Frankfurt be guest contributors at Insider NJ, right? Again, a woman, for example, working with the state assembly and state senate in Albany, New York, right? Working with Senate Democrats in Albany, New York, that created these disastrous policies. So next time you go to New York City and you're seeing criminals running wild, thank guest contributors and another waste of life like Corin Frankfurt, who contributes to Insider NJ. You can thank her for that. But these are the people that Max Brazzaro likes to elevate. And I feel bad for Fred Snowflake. He's a good friend of mine. He's the only journalist at this garbage news site that actually does any worthwhile reporting. I may not like his taste in teams. He has really bad taste in teams with his Mets and Jets, but he's a good reporter. Don't like his liberal leanings, but he's a good writer and good reporter. Probably the only honest person that there is at Insider NJ. Okay? But what we were thinking of last weekend, folks, we saw it on Mike Johnson's face. The level of disconnect by the President of the United States and by Democrats in Washington. Okay, again, where a border doesn't matter. They're more concerned with pronouns, making sure there's a lesbian in every cabinet position. Wait a minute, a lesbian here, a lesbian there, making sure there are trans people everywhere, in our military, because we have to, coddle the alphabet army, because we have to coddle, the alphabet mob and make sure that, we're meeting that quota. Folks, that's the level of the Democrat Party on a national level. These are the things that Max Brazzaro values, especially here in New Jersey. Max Brazzaro would rather lecture you about the importance of pronouns instead of property taxes. Folks, it's why no one takes Max Brazzaro seriously. It's why no one takes Insider NJ seriously. And those days of being a credible news source, those days of being, something of value and substance, that's long gone, folks. Because we know the only news site that's worth anything in New Jersey is the New Jersey Globe. And my good friend David Wasting, its editor-in-chief. Because they actually break news. They're not just regurgitating out press releases or nonsensical columns like Max Brazzaro just spewed out last week. Folks, what a waste of bandwidth to read that nonsense. And the level of delusion just only gets reinforced when we think about Max Brazzaro. Okay? Our favorite urban cowboy, God help us. But I know what you're thinking. Fernando, you're being too harsh on Max. You're too mean on Max Brazzaro. Okay? You're being a little too malicious. And you know what? Now that I think about it, you know what? I think I'll have a change of heart. Maybe I won't pick up Max Brazzaro. Maybe I'll move on to something a little more positive, because it is March, right, folks? So why not, again, reinforce the importance of Women's History Month? And you know what? When I think about Women's History Month, I think about maybe, let's honor some of the women in New Jersey media, right? So why not? Happy Women's History Month to my favorite women in New Jersey media, who coincidentally all work at Insider NJ, right? Obviously, we have one of the leading women out there, Jay Lassiter, right? Another one that has the same work ethic as Max Brazzaro. If he publishes one column a month, that's a big surprise and accomplishment, right? If you're not smoking weed all day, you're living off your partner's income. What a surprise for that woman. Or other women here in New Jersey media. Of course, the Insider NJ general manager, another woman, in my opinion, Pino Nelia, right? Or other useless women there, right? Bob Henley, okay? Who, again, folks, you couldn't get more of a communist in New Jersey media than Bob Henley, right? Speaking of disconnect and delusional, right? We think about Alan Steinberg, Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Alan's celebrating a birthday this year. So Alan, happy birthday, I think, coming up, right? I think you turn 98 or 99. Yeah. So happy birthday in advance to you. And of course, folks, we see Max Brazzaro there, who likes to play dress up, and kind of makes you wonder, who's riding who? Is it the horse or Max Brazzaro? I don't know. Kind of makes you wonder. But again, folks, happy Women's History Month to some of my favorite women in New Jersey media, all courtesy of Insider NJ. Folks, the Graham family must be so proud every time they cut a check every 2 weeks there. So again, happy Women's History Month to all those nice ladies at Insider NJ. Folks, that's our show for this week. But before I call it, let me just say thank you to the Liberty Science Center and R.W. Barnabas at the Jersey City Medical Center for inviting me to be a judge at this year's Hudson County STEM Showcase. And I got to tell you, folks, what a wonderful experience it was today to be at Liberty Science Center. Very cold morning, frigid, windy, but folks, it was worth getting up early this morning, going to the Liberty Science Center and having the privilege of interacting with so many gifted and talented students in the field of science, technology, engineering, and math, folks. I had the privilege of talking to so many, again, wonderful students, teachers as well, wonderful displays in the behavioral sciences, within animation as well, even within the medical sciences. Folks, I learned so much today. And again, being a broadcast journalist of integrity and character and decorum, all the things you've come to rely on this show for, right? But folks, I got to take off my hat as a broadcast journalist, an award-winning broadcast journalist, and sort of put on my hat as an educator. And folks, I got to tell you, it was so fulfilling today. Walking around. By the way, great breakfast and great lunch, by the way, there by the Liberty Science Center. Kudos to them and the R.W. Barnabas Jersey City Medical Center as well for hosting this event. First time they've been able to do it since the pandemic, of course. All right. But what a wonderful experience. Got to network a lot today. Certainly learn about very different fields, folks, that normally we wouldn't learn about. But that is the gift that keeps on giving, ladies and gentlemen, about STEM and this curriculum. So when we look at wonderful urban high schools like Jose Marti STEM Academy in Union City, or High Tech High School in Secaucus, right? Or other great STEM high schools throughout, not just Hudson County, but throughout New Jersey. Folks, it is a worthwhile experience. And I can tell you it was a privilege and an honor to attend today and to be asked to be a judge. I hope I get invited back next year. It's a great accomplishment there. Again, I feel very, very flattered as someone within the community who I think has some standing, of course. Now, listen, I don't like to brag too much, but certainly a wonderful, wonderful opportunity today. And again, I just want to thank the Liberty Science Center and again, the Jersey City Medical Center and R.W. Barnabas for, again, giving me the opportunity to go there today. Again, folks, you can see there. I mean, when am I not rocking a nice suit? You know what I'm saying? Like it's, the most handsome face that runs the place. Come on, let's be honest. But in all seriousness, all kidding around. What a privilege today to be at the Hudson County STEM Showcase. And listen, I scored everybody fairly. I learned a lot. And I really benefited from being really in conversations with so many great teachers there, so many great students and administrators. And folks, we get to see the return on investment about why STEM education is necessary and so important now more than ever, not just in our public high schools, but in our public colleges, universities, and even also in our elementary schools, folks. We cannot say enough about the importance of STEM and how it's shaping young minds for the future. So again, thank you to the Liberty Science Center and once again, the R.W. Barnabas and Jersey City Medical Center for their invitation this year to be a judge at the Hudson County STEM Showcase. Certainly an experience I treasure, and I hopefully I'll get invited back next year. Folks, that's our show for this week. Once again, I want to thank the distinguished interim president, Andrés Acebo from New Jersey City University, for his appearance tonight. Wonderful dialogue, wonderful conversation about really the extraordinary work that he's doing at NJCU. And hopefully, again, once the board of directors at NJCU makes a decision, we're hoping to take that interim title off and make sure he's the full-time president at NJCU. Folks, again, thank you so much for joining us here. Always make sure to check us out on our social media platforms. Make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, right? You can see, obviously you can see right behind me there. Make sure you follow us there. Also on YouTube, click the subscribe button and you'll be automatically notified about all the great content brought to you by Jersey First. And of course, whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download it and take Jersey First TV with you. Again, as the days are getting longer, the days are getting warmer, you're outside. Hey, you have your listen, you're going to have your smartphone in your hand, right? Well, guess what? Listen to Jersey First anywhere at any time. And ladies and gentlemen, I cannot say enough about how proud I am to be on the dream team of Garnet's TV. That's right, folks. It's Jersey First TV. Of course, brand new episodes of The Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday, courtesy of the amazing Elizabeth Nader. And brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap with AJ Malillo premiere every Thursday as well via Jersey First. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, brand new episodes live and in living color on Monday nights, whether 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. Eastern time. Again, courtesy of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe premiere every Monday night. We appreciate you tuning in here. And of course, we appreciate the live audience, the strong metrics, all the shares. And I appreciate everyone checking out the replays, sharing that on their social media. It's why the show, folks, continues to do great organic traffic. Unlike, well, let's be honest, a lot of the Mickey Mouse journalists, at these Mickey Mouse news sites in New Jersey. It's not the case here, folks. Not the Mickey Mouse here on Jersey First TV. Folks, once again, we appreciate you tuning in here. Again, we'll keep coming up with great guests in the coming weeks and months ahead as the spring continues. I can't say enough about how proud I am to be here with Jersey First TV. Traffic continues strong. And of course, I owe it all to you, my loyal viewing audience, family, friends, colleagues, peers, frenemies, and haters alike. You all tune in every Monday night because you just can't help yourselves. And you certainly, I know you enjoy the content here every single week. Always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always real talk right here with Jersey First TV. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist. Top 50 Latino is voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And without a doubt, I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Fernando Uribe, because my level of honesty, now more than ever, is necessary in this era of blatant journalistic deception. That's right, folks, here tune in every Monday night. We appreciate you coming on here, folks, and making this part of your Monday night viewing. So take care of yourselves. Enjoy the warm weather. Again, please party responsibly. Enjoy St. Patrick's Day this weekend, folks. As I said before, please party responsibly. Uber and Lyft everywhere. Make sure you're partying and getting home safely and getting home alive. That's the most important thing. So enjoy St. Patrick's Day. Wear some green. Go out and enjoy family and friends. And we'll see you next time here, folks, on Jersey First TV. And always remember, we love you and we appreciate you tuning in every single week here at jerseyfirst.org/TV. Again, without you, the success of this program would not be possible. So have a great rest of your week, and thanks for stopping by.